Thanks so much for joining our call this morning on COVID-era hunger. We're so pleased that you could be with us. This morning we'll be discussing making sure that all of our kids eat during this crisis. Please note that everyone is muted during the call except for our panelists. However, we need your questions to make the conversation complete. So please email me at ecooper@2harvest.org or post your questions if you're joining us via Zoom. Feel free to post them on Facebook as well if that's where you are joining us. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Allison O'Toole, the CEO of Second Harvest Heartland, to begin our conversation.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and good morning, everyone. For too many of our community's kids, this is shaping up to be the hungriest summer they've ever known. We can't allow this for any child in our community, and we certainly can't accept Depression-era levels of hunger for our future leaders and growing citizens. We need to work together to get meals to our kids for the remaining weeks of the summer, and then we need to help our neighborhood meal programs adapt so whatever school looks like this fall, our kids are eating and they can learn. To discuss the best ways to get this work done, I am joined by Second Harvest Heartland superstar, Joanna Lund. She is a summer food child hunger specialist here at Second Harvest Heartland, and Ellie Lucas, the founder and CEO of Hunger Impact Partners. Thank you both so much for being here. During these stressful times when there is so much competing for our attention, it feels important to me that so many of you choose to join us on Tuesday mornings for these gatherings. It is critical that we keep a steady eye on COVID's impact on hunger so we can respond. An attendee told me recently that she makes sure to tune in to each of these calls because, as she said, we can't lose sight of one another in the chaos of these times. And I think that is precisely it. This kind of attention to our neighbors requires us to talk about the fact that many kids are accustomed to receiving 2 meals a day at school. And when COVID shuttered our schools, their child nutrition teams, our first line of defense against child hunger, were forced to adapt overnight in order to keep serving meals. This placed extra pressure and importance on their close partners running summertime meal programs in rec centers and park sites. And these rec centers and park sites are all facing their own new COVID-related challenges and closures now. So kids who in summers past could easily eat lunch and breakfast while playing basketball in the rec center down the block from their home have lost the rec center, time on the court, and their meal. So the partners we've long depended on to feed the 40% of Minnesota kids who get free school meals have been forced to reinvent their services to deliver meals to homes or via drive-up setups. New flexibilities from the federal government, the USDA, have made it possible for summer meal programs to shift to a to-go model so kids can stay home and safe, to deliver meals directly to children's homes, and to send more than one meal at a time to better meet the need. And in a moment, I'll ask Joanna to share how these waivers have been essential to feeding kids this summer. But first, I want to take a minute to run through our COVID response to date. As we've done every week, we continue to be in the highest gear we have. And so since March, we have distributed 43 million pounds of food into the community, which equals nearly 36 million meals. We've helped over 5,000 members of the community complete a SNAP or food stamp application, and we've supplied food and people power to 111 emergency grocery pop-ups where produce, dairy, and protein goes from our trucks straight to people's trunks and then straight into their cupboards. We are really honored to stand with this community as we respond, and happy to hand the mic again to a Second Harvest Heartland superstar, Joanna Lund, to say a few words. Joanna?
Great, thanks so much, Allison. As she just covered, briefly the USDA waivers that we've seen come through for this program have allowed for flexibilities in how summer meals are delivered. And they've been extremely effective in helping to make sure kids who are able to access the programs are getting as many meals as possible. Of course, as we know, the families are being hit significantly and immediately by this pandemic, and we're only expecting that to worsen through the rest of the summer and into the fall. And of course, the ability to obtain food is often one of the first things to be affected when those finances with families dry up. So we're grateful for the Summer Food Service Program, SFSP, as a tool to help keep our communities fed. And we're seeing sponsors step up in incredible ways to offer this program during these challenging times. Real quick background, the Summer Food Service Program is a meal program that offers free meals to kids 18 and under. You don't have to show ID. Anyone can show up and get meals. And with these waivers, we're seeing the ability to have curbside delivery, to-go meals, and also kids are able often to get more than one meal at a time, which has been really exciting. They're offered by local sponsors, and so you'll hear me talking about sponsors a lot. So after the spring that we had of distance learning, sponsors started using the summer food program to offer emergency meals. And following that spring of that emergency meal service, we're now seeing more new sponsors offering the summer program through the summer than we've ever seen before. And between the new sponsors and then the veteran sponsors that we've had for years, MDE, the Minnesota Department of Ed, who administers this program, they're seeing a significant increase in both added public sites where people can access meals and new service models, which is allowing for easier access to SFSP, like I said, through curbside pickup, deliveries on bus routes, direct home delivery, and even coordinating innovations like coordinating with childcare programs to connect those families to meals. And because of the waivers, offering several days worth of food at a time, which makes it a lot easier for families to not have to go every single day and pick up food. The Minnesota Department of Ed is very busy these days. They're working diligently to approve sponsor and site applications as quickly as possible and utilizing every available waiver that we have right now to ensure that sponsors are able to continue serving meals all summer in a way that is safe for our communities, which has to be a priority. The waivers that we have right now, though, are set to expire, which will be an issue. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And so right now we're looking forward to the fall. I'm excited to see when we are able to do a deep dive into the impact of this program and just how many kids we've been able to keep fed this summer. And in the meantime, though, we want to acknowledge how our school and community partners are showing their unwavering commitment to keeping kids safe, fed, and healthy. So thank you to school and community partners and to MDE. Here at Second Harvest Heartland, the Child Hugger team has been very busy. To respond to the changes with the pandemic and school closure, we've been supporting partners with capacity building grants to offset the increased cost of packaging, things like packaging unitized meals for their to-go bottles, increased staff costs with added labor of doing to-go meals and with safety measures, as well as transportation costs. A lot of partners for the first time are doing things like that home delivery. And then in addition, connecting them with other resources available. So for example, there's a grant out at the state level to support partners. We've also been communicating up-to-date information on waivers and regulations with all of the pandemic changes, and then sharing best practices with partners. So when somebody's figured something out, let's get the word out and help other people to do that as well. We also work to keep a pulse on partner challenges and opportunities so that as Second Harvest Heartland, we can advocate for program improvemements, encourage our partners to do the same, and to help others figure out information that's relevant to our school community. So there's been a lot of questions, for example, on the pandemic EBT program that we've been able to help navigate. And then my colleagues here at Second Harvest asked, what are we expecting to see this fall? And the answer is that we have no idea. School and community partners are currently scenario planning multiple options on how they can continue meal service to reach kids this fall. And we're waiting on the announcement for if we will have fully in-person instruction, distance learning, or if we'll see a hybrid of those two scenarios. So school nutrition associations are working hard to figure out how they can serve kids in any of those scenarios, which is an incredible ask of them. And they're doing this with pretty limited program clarification at the federal level, tight school budgets with all the increased costs of the emergency meal service they've been doing, limited staff time, and limited calendar time to make that happen. So the thing that we're really kind of thinking about right now is that the current decision that's coming from the federal level, from the USDA, to discontinue waivers that allow the meal providers to use the summer food program that I just talked about, is discontinuing. And the benefits of the summer food program is that for many reasons, it just makes meal service a lot easier and less burdensome on our partners. And it makes it easier for kids to access food. And that will be discontinuing in the fall, and schools will have to go back to using the lunch program. And for details I won't get into, that is a lot more challenging. It comes with a lot more regulations, a lot more rules for service, and it's a lot more expensive to offer. And so we're really, if there's ways that we can get that summer food emergency waiver extended, that would be incredibly helpful for our partners to be able to serve food more easily with less financial burden, and to be able to reach more kids. So that's what we're thinking about right now, looking into the fall and just waiting to see how things unfold and supporting partners and moving towards that. So I want to close. Thank you for putting this together, and thank you to our partners and to the Minnesota Department of Ed for all the work they're doing day in and day out to keep our kids fed.
Great. Thank you, Joanna. And now everyone sees what a star you are. Not just me and not just our team, but thank you for all your work that you and the Child Hunger team are doing, and all of our partners are doing to ensure kids stay fed this summer. And so just 5 stars there. So thank you. We are problem solving. I like to say we're problem solving every single minute of every single day. And that's not just Second Harvest Heartland, but all of our partners as well. And now I'm going to pass the mic to another tireless advocate who's making it easier than ever for parents to find out where they can access meals for their families this summer. Thanks again for being here, Ellie, and thank you so much for your partnership.
Thank you, Allison. It's great to be here. Just a quick overview of Hunger Impact Partners. We were founded in 2015. I ran the Hunger Free Minnesota campaign in partnership with Second Harvest from 2010 to 2015. So it's, you know, a long-standing relationship that we've had, partnership, and you guys do a tremendous amount of good in the community, in all the counties that you serve, not only in the state, but also in Wisconsin. And it's an honor and a privilege to be attending today. So just quickly, I wanted to talk mostly about the kinds of things that we do. We work statewide. We're an organization that was founded in 2015, and we provide grants to schools and community organizations. We advocate for federal and state investment in child nutrition, and we use technology to develop and improve access for families and children to meals. We also created the Child Nutrition Index, which is a centralized resource that helps us look at what's happening in communities across the state and direct investments where it's needed most. Work with the Minnesota Department of Ed, Department of Health, and HDS to combine all that data, those data sets, so that we can look at it in one place and make sure that these investments are going where they're needed most. Today we're here to talk about summer meals, and for context, Hunger Impact Partners created, in partnership with Minneapolis Public Schools and St. Paul Public Schools and MDE, the first mobile app in the nation that was designed to help kids find meals in the summer. And as Joanna mentioned, it had a lot to do with, servicing communities where there were high concentrations of kids, but also to be able to create a centralized resource for kids to access meals. What we did when the pandemic hit was we redeployed the Summer Eats Minnesota mobile app to be free meals for kids during the school closures or during pandemic, and utilize the same technology. So we had the ability to be very nimble and agile to make this happen. And essentially it operates just like it did for the summer meals for kids, in that we use a GPS technology. It shows the sites and locations where meals are served and how they're being served. With the pandemic, we had to get extremely creative. We had about 1,500 sites that were listed, predominantly schools. Occasionally there was a community site, but in most cases we were really supporting the schools. So as Joanna had mentioned, they were so quick to adapt to a way to deliver these school meals to kids, bundling them, multiple meals in one pack, serving meals not just 5 days, but 7 days. Lots of really creative things that were done, the grab and go and the site locations where they were providing them. They utilized their food trucks. They utilized bus routes. They utilized a lot of creative methods of delivering food. What we tried to do with the mobile app is get all of that information in one central location. So if you were to click on a site, you would get the specifics around the mobile app, but then you would also click on site updates, and you could get the specifics of where they were going to deliver meals, whether that was a bus route, the times, the days, all the specifics that you would need to help enable you to access these meals. We saw a substantial increase in April of utilization of school meals. We have over 320,000 kids that are eligible for school meals in the K through 12 system, and we had 465,000 kids accessing meals in the month of April. So a significant uptick in terms of the number of meals that were being delivered. As we've moved into June, we have been able to maintain a little over 1,000 sites. There are 1,030 sites that are operating. And as Joanna mentioned regarding the waivers, they were originally expected to expire on June 30th, and they were extended in early June to August 31st. We've spent a lot of time maintaining the relationships with those that are sponsoring summer food service sites and extending them well beyond their traditional time frame of serving meals. So we're looking at more kids accessing a higher number of days throughout the summer. We have about, as I mentioned, around 1,000 sites currently. We have 12,000 downloads of the mobile app. It's been visited 15,000 times. There's been 22,000 page views. We're serving approximately 285,319 kids in the month of June that were recipients of meals being provided. We're seeing a huge uptick in terms of the number of days. So we're migrating from 5 to 7, which is huge. And in the month of June, we were able to calibrate through work with MDE that there were 11.4 million meals provided to kids in that month alone. We have 22 community sites that are community organizations that are supporting multiple sites. The same thing with charter schools. We have 133 school districts across the state that are continuing to serve meals, which is a considerable uptick from what we've had in previous years with summer food service. So altogether, the organizations that are providing summer meals reaches about 170 plus sponsors, and they are providing meals to over 1,000 sites. So it's quite remarkable. The number of individuals that are stepping up, whether it's a school district, whether it is a community organization, to really do the best they can to make sure that kids are getting meals. We're seeing religious community centers participate, food trucks doing unique and creative methods of distribution. Libraries are still functioning in this capacity, even though they're not open. Churches and schools, parks. So all the traditional methods that were used previously are still functioning, but just in a more unique fashion. So it's been really rewarding to see how the app has been so instrumental in being the centralized resource. It's astounding to me that there aren't more states that are doing this because we share this data frequently with everybody. It would be just a great resource to have. And we know from lots of data out there that most low-income families, or 93% of them, have access to a smartphone. So they utilize the resource in many ways. So with that, I'll turn it back to Allison.
Thank you so much, Ellie. And it is truly amazing work. We could not, I think we all feel like none of us could do this alone. And boy, you are just highlighting that fact today, and really amazing work for our community. So thank you. I want to end by reiterating something I've said many times in these updates over the past few weeks. SNAP is the bedrock of the hunger relief system, and it is an essential and effective part of our hunger relief response to COVID, especially as we anticipate that up to 1 in 5 Minnesota kids aren't going to know where their next meal is coming from in just a couple weeks. So luckily, Minnesota, you've heard about pandemic EBT. Luckily, Minnesota was able to offer pandemic EBT benefits, which is a one-time payment of $325 per child for all families enrolled in SNAP and free and reduced school meals to help cover the cost of school meals families were no longer able to access due to complications from COVID. Even better, I am so proud to say that Minnesota is one of just a few states to expand PEBT to cover the summer months with an additional $100 per child to boost family grocery budgets in July and August. Here's the important part. The deadline to apply for these benefits is July 31st, just a week and a half away. It has already been extended once. And so I think this is it, folks. So we will post a link in our chat on this Zoom call to where you can go to find out and learn more information on how this program works and learn how to sign up if your family is eligible. To our media partners on this call, I am just going to say thank you in advance for helping publicize this deadline. This is so important. Our goal, everyone's goal on this call, is to make sure families, especially kids, have the food they need to stay healthy and to be able to learn through this public health crisis so we can all thrive at the end of it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. If we shore up every SNAP option, strengthen every neighborhood meal site, and stock every food shelf, we can beat this and we can keep this COVID era hunger at bay. So thank you for joining us again. We're happy to take questions.
Thanks so much, Allison, Ellie, and Joanna. What a good conversation. Folks, do submit your questions. We have a handful that have come in and we'd love to hear more. First, we have a comment from Jean in White Bear Lake. She shared the following. My child has been hungry and so have I. I have discovered recently that he's been stealing cheese sticks and soda from the convenience store down the block. I didn't punish him, she says. I just want everyone listening to hear how hard it's been this summer. So I know all of you will have, you'll want to talk with Jean. So Allison, do you want to start us off?
I'm happy to, thanks Elizabeth. And Jean, thank you for stepping forward with this important comment. First, we are here to help you and your family. This whole community is surrounding all of us right now so we get through it. There is help available if you go to twoharvest.org. Find out if you're eligible for SNAP benefits. That will bolster your grocery budget if you're eligible. I know Elizabeth is putting that all in the chat and posting it on Facebook as well. And I think, SNAP, and then maybe I'll turn it to Ellie here in a minute to, I think accessing those summer meals is so important. But Jean, I always think, I know we are seeing so many new faces try to navigate this system right now, both SNAP benefits and trying to find access to food. And I am so thankful that you asked the question. I think asking for help shows that you trust our community. I trust our community and we stand with you in getting through this. So go to twoharvest.org. And Ellie, what is your, how can you help? Or how can the app help?
Yes. If you download Free Meals for Kids, you'll notice, I think on the slides you saw the logo, it's the state of Minnesota. You can find out in close proximity to where you live what meal sites are available. And then you can just use the app to find out what times and what meals they're serving. Now, these meals are just directed to children, but in some cases, the sites also have backpacks that are meal packs that have been provided by Second Harvest Heartland, or meal packs that have been provided, I think, by the Sheridan Story. So there are ways to help support the families as well as the kids. And then you can go as frequently as you need to based upon when it's available. You can download the app. I was remiss in not telling this earlier, either through the Google Play or the Apple App Store. And it's a free mobile app. You put it on your phone. It doesn't use up a lot of space. It doesn't cost anything to do. But if you use it, depending upon where you are, you can also click on the map and it'll show you. And I just happened to do that while I was listening to the call. And there is a site in White Bear Lake, kind of near, and again, this could be problematic for transportation, but I do know that there are 2 or 3 sites that are in White Bear Lake. So I wish the caller success in being able to locate meals, particularly for the children in the home, as well as what they might be able to access given the meal services that are being provided by the food banks and the local food shelves.
Elizabeth, I assume you will also include the link straight to find a food shelf for anyone to be able to find a food shelf in their community.
Absolutely, absolutely. Jean, we are with you. We hope that today's lunch is fuller than cheese stick and soda, and we just want to give you many, many options. Jean also wrote in with a question. Again, Jean, our writer, our caller from White Bear Lake, has a question. She's wondering about Joanna tackling this one. How is food kept safe while traveling? I worry about that dairy on the road so much. Is it still fresh? So I think she's talking about the fact that summer meals used to be served right in rec centers, and now we have this to-go model. So
yeah. And I'd like to talk, I can touch briefly on both of these, wrapping them together, that with the concern of milk, food will always be safe. That is something that is regulation. It needs to happen. And if it gets outside of safety compliance, they have to get rid of the food. So that's always something that we are striving for, but that's a good example of ways that sponsors are under a lot more demands and a lot higher expenses under our current model. And so they could bring it to the rec center, put it in the fridge, we didn't have to worry about it, but now suddenly we're serving a much higher volume of food and we're delivering it. And so I've talked with partners like, we need 100 coolers and we don't have money. And also literally there are no coolers to buy because everybody's buying coolers. And so they're under these much higher demands to be able to offer the program safely without any sort of added financial support to be able to offer that. Some of the school districts have been able to step in and support from their general fund, but many are operating on a shoestring budget, and they're finding ways to keep it safe, but it has not been easy. It's been very, very challenging for our partners. And if I can just speak quickly to the first part of that question, I think that just perfectly exemplifies what Allison had said at the beginning, that so many people rely on those meals they receive in school as their primary source of nutrition. And so in a normal summer, we're already seeing people struggle. And now with all of the changes brought on by the pandemic, people who have never worried about food before are suddenly thrust into this hunger relief system. And just really then underlines the importance of when we're going back to school in the fall, if this family has to do distance learning, what does that mean for their food? How are they going to be able to get food come fall? How can we expect this son to be learning if he's not getting the food he needs and instead is having to steal soda and cheese sticks instead of learning, right? It's just crazy. So we need to be supporting our school partners and putting pressure to make sure that waivers come through that allow for meal service.
That's great. Thanks, Joanna. I think you're beginning to answer the next question we have from Kathy in Mankato. Kathy says she's stunned to hear Allison talk about the hungriest summer ever, which is certainly what we're living through for a lot of children. She wants to know 2 things that she can do to make sure fall is better and different. And she says she can only give small financial gifts. So how else can she engage?
You want me to start, Elizabeth?
Yeah, why don't you kick us off there?
So Kathy, thank you for your question. It is my job and responsibility to make sure the community has this information. I wish I had better news right now, but I do know, there's so much we can't control in this pandemic, but what we can control goes to the heart of your question, and it's about how this community can step up and support one another during this, crisis on top of crisis here. So I think what you are doing by tuning in and making it okay for people to talk about their experience, to access help, that is so critical right now because we see so many new people who need help. And so I think a big way that you can help is just by keeping this conversation going and not being afraid to talk about it and making sure your neighbors know and your colleagues know where they can get help. So thank you. Give financially if you can. I know that is hard for some people, but I will tell you every single dollar counts. We can stretch a dollar like nobody's business. We turn a dollar into 3 meals here, so we can leverage our buying power like we can't individually at the grocery store. So every dollar counts. And I think the other thing is, and I know Joanna was talking about this, use your voice. We need everybody's voice to speak up about those waivers, the importance of SNAP, and that is, personal advocacy with our elected officials to make sure they know how important these programs are right now. Not only they are all the time, but especially right now, we need them bolstered.
Yeah, and if I could add something quickly, I want to just build on Allison's comment of listening in and like normalizing the conversation around hunger that so many of us are experiencing, and talk to people about these resources. Make sure people know. Do your neighbors know that they can be signing up for PEBT? Have your neighbors downloaded Ellie's app? I'm pointing to Ellie on my screen. Have downloaded Ellie's app that they can be accessing these meals this summer. And a lot of people say, well, I don't want to take it from somebody who might need it more, our kind of Minnesotan culture. Nope, go and use those resources. They're there for you to use. And the more people who use summer meals, the more successful the program is. It allows it to operate at scale, and it normalizes it for those who really, really are experiencing that need. So there's never any reason that's good enough to drive you away from accessing any of these benefits, whether that's a food shelf, summer meals for kids, or SNAP benefits.
I would agree. I would agree with that too, because there's a sharing feature on the app. And what we've tried to do too is, just to reinforce what both Allison and Joanna had said, is that, sharing that information does put everybody kind of on an even playing field to some extent. Access it. It's there for you. It's available. It's a great way, I think, to bridge the gap with a lot of people, because you don't know. You don't know if it's your neighbor that's struggling. You don't know if it's, a child down the block. And so in many cases, it's just the luxury of being able to pass around some information. There are other resources on the app. So you can click on county resources. You can click on access to hunger solutions that lists all of the information to access food shelves, and also Second Harvest Heartland and the SNAP outreach that they're doing. So there are a bunch of resources that are embedded in that app too, that can take you directly to those resources. So we've tried to at least be, a good partner with communities, and the more we can share it, I think the more effective it will be, and the more, the more people that know about it are more likely to pass it along. So thank you for.
Yeah, thank you so much for the great question, Kathy, and for the information panelists. I think that's really powerful. We have a question from Kate Link. She is asking about the $600 unemployment benefit, which is set to expire soon on the 31st. If not renewed or a new plan put in place, what kind of impact do you see this having on hunger in our community? Kate, that is the big question on all of our minds this summer. Again, I'm going to ask Allison to start with the response, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. That is the critical question, and that is why we are talking to the community about this. In just a few weeks, when those benefits go away, 1 in 8 Minnesotans, including 1 in 5 Minnesota kids, aren't going to know where their next meal is coming from. And let me tell you what that means for families. And I am not trying to be overly dramatic about this, but let me just give you the reality. That means families are watering down milk. That means moms are skipping meals so their kids can have more. That means kids are showing up to school or their activities, and no matter if school is online or in person, hungry. Hungry kids can't learn. And if our next generation can't learn, boy, we are in trouble. And so we have been trying to use our voice. That's why we need your help. The good news, I said a minute ago, there's so much we can't control in this pandemic, this public health crisis and economic crisis. But what we can control is how we show up for one another. And there's a few things you can do. And we have the data. So now we have a plan. We are in high gear. I have total faith in us that we will get through this if we have the right resources. So a couple things you can do. and everyone can do. One, give financially. Go to twoharvest.org. Again, we can stretch $1 like nobody's business. We need if we have shown that if we have the right resources that we can respond appropriately. We work with a strong network of food shelves and meal programs across the state that need your help too. And we are all working together to make sure that that cupboards are full and bellies are full as well. Second, again, talk about hunger in your community. Make it okay for everyone who needs it to ask for help. Again, I think asking for help shows trust in your community. I trust this community immensely. I have been just overwhelmed with the generosity of this community. And so let's keep that going. And lastly, help advocate for some of those policy changes that we need so desperately right now. The waivers, the flexibility around the summer meals, around SNAP, they are so critical to us getting through this pandemic and public health crisis so we can thrive again at the end. And so use your voice, not only to talk about hunger, but to advocate for those changes.
Thanks, Allison. Thoughts, Joanna and Ellie?
Yeah, I would just echo what Allison has to say. And what comes to mind for me is that in lieu of our federal government stepping in and agreeing to continue what has been critical to hold this crisis at bay, the community will need to step up. And they've been stepping up in incredible ways, but that means continuing to donate to your local food shelf, donate to the food bank, volunteer to get that food out there, and talk to your neighbors, because that's the only way that we're going to get through this.
Perfect.
And advocate so that maybe the federal government will step in, but I'm not going to hold my breath. So,
Ellie, how about you?
I agree that there's a lot that's being done by the hunger relief community across the state, and I think on the national playing field. Minnesota has a strong infrastructure and very talented and influential people that are working to make some changes. I think that if I were to look at my crystal ball and try to predict what's going to happen, I think that the resources and the strategies that we deploy post this pandemic, so the idea of saying, okay, how should the meal delivery system look and how should it work going forward so that we can be as effective as possible, this point in time is going to allow us to do a lot of that thinking and to sort of reframe, I think, the strategies as well as the structures of some of these programs. Joanna alluded to this earlier in that some of these programs that the schools are administering are very cumbersome. They're labor intensive. The compliance issues and regulatory issues are big, and it's a lot to ask for a school system. So I think streamlining how kids are getting meals, whatever that federal program is. I also think that we have a real opportunity here with these waivers to figure out how we can do this in the most effective way, because the whole intent of these programs was to feed more kids. So making it difficult to do that isn't what we are striving to do. So in many regards, I think depending upon what this looks like, we need to continue to make sure that it's okay for kids to have school meals. They do a great job of making them nutritionally competent. They meet the guidelines that are directed by the federal government, which is a positive thing. And also what we're trying to do at the ground level. I would say supporting the schools and the community organizations that are actually on the front lines doing the work is a real strong investment of where dollars should go. So.
Perfect. Thank you all. I can't think of a better place to wrap up. Here's to more meals for our kids as we move through the last few weeks of summer and into fall. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, everybody. And please come back, same time, same place next week.